Hi, I'm Libby.
And I'm Riley, and welcome to On the Come Up. As young professionals ourselves, we're constantly striving to connect and uplift young people in the Toledo community. Our podcast is featuring young entrepreneurs and professionals in the area from all different industries and walks of life who are making an impact in Toledo.
We're excited to have our guests discuss their background, their education, and training, and give any advice for other young professionals like us. We're also going to take a look at varying pop culture trends among Gen Zers like ourselves and discuss or debunk them, maybe even a little Roman Empire.
You know what I've been thinking about?
What, girl?
Sports.
Okay.
Okay, but don't misunderstand me. I'm not thinking about the actual sport. I'm thinking about the experience attending a game.
Fair. I love being in the audience, watching a game,
right?
Getting a little snack.
So, I literally could not tell you a single rule about hockey, but I love a hockey game.
Oh, me too.
Right? I could not tell you a single thing about most sports, actually, but I will always go to a game. Get a little drink,
fun.
a little hot dog, sit my butt down. I'm sad.
Yes.
And there's nobody better in the world to talk about that experience of going to a game than our guest today.
Our guest today certainly knows a thing or two about that. Welcome in, Harison Bhanoo.
Well, Harry, we're so excited that you're joining us on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
Thank you so much for coming. So, we both don't really know a ton about your background.
Yeah, fill us in. Did you grow up in Toledo?
I did not. I grew up in
Okay.
Cleveland, but my grandparents and my mom's side of the family is from Toledo, and we have quite a large family here. So was very often making the trip from Cleveland to Toledo for birthday parties, holidays, growing up, and so very familiar with the Toledo area when I did decide to move here for work.
Nice.
Yeah, that's definitely nice to have that comfortability coming in for sure.
Absolutely. And I even got a place to stay when I first got here because the summer that I started interning at Toledo, I lived with my grandparents.
Oh, nice.
And then when I decided to come back to Toledo, I needed like 2 weeks to stay before I could get into my apartment. And so I was back with my grandparents again. So
Oh, that's
Nice.
sweet.
huge shout out to them.
Yeah, right?
Aw.
Love that. Tell us, too, you went to your undergrad at OSU and then you pursued your master's at UT. So talk a little bit kind of about that experience, what you studied, how you went from OSU to UT, etc.
I like to think that I picked OSU and Toledo picked me, and I couldn't be happier about either. It's just been awesome. So I did my undergrad at Ohio State, didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. Both my parents are engineers, so I went in as an engineering student. Just wasn't my passion. Took me a little bit of time to figure out what that was, but luckily they had some resources down there to help me with that. And I ended up in sports industry is what they call it. That was my major. Didn't even know that was a thing before I was down at OSU. But what became apparent very quickly is if you want to do something in sports, it's very competitive that a lot of people want to get in, so you need internships. And so after my sophomore year, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. Now I got to catch up to everyone who started doing this as a freshman.
Sure.
And so just looking for internships and, happen to know, right, that's how everything is. You happen to know someone who works for someone. So got a contact at Toledo, and they said they had some summer internships available, and so interviewed and ended up here for a summer before my junior year. And so then I went back down to OSU, finished out. COVID was a thing back there. So kind of stunted a lot of plans I had for my end internships. But one bright side of that is I ended up working virtually for Toledo because I had kind of my foot in the door there. They weren't bringing anyone into the offices. So the fact that I was in Columbus didn't really impact me from still doing some work for them. It wasn't anything major, but at least kept in touch and, helped out where I could.
Yeah, that makes it easier, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, so when it came time for me to graduate and I was looking for positions, they were starting to bring back some roles that they hadn't filled when people graduated and left, and one of them was a graduate assistant position within marketing. It was kind of a perfect next step for me. Could get a master's degree while I gained a lot more experience, and so was very happy when I got that call that they were bringing it back and they'd like me to come back to that position.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And I do want to back up a little bit, too, because you've had kind of a wide array of internships.
Yeah, definitely. We were looking at your LinkedIn, and I was like, oh, wow.
Sorry, I had to do a little social media stalking.
Of course, it's only natural, right?
But yeah, so tell us a little bit about those internships that you did outside of UT as well and kind of what you took away from those going forward.
Sure. How far back would you like me to go? Back to my lifeguarding days or strictly within sports?
Maybe let's keep it focused in sports, although I am interested in that too.
Sure. So I would say my first internship. It was really a job for me after I got done with lifeguarding, coaching, that kind of thing. I worked at my dad's factory. It was when I was still in engineering. He's got a company that's engineering based, so I got to work on the floor, in the stock room, manufacturing, factory like that. I learned a lot, and so that was really cool. Kind of taught me some professionalism, things like that. Then I had my first internship within sports was Toledo. After that summer, was going back down, for my junior year at Ohio State, and so ended up working as a marketing intern for them as well. That was awesome. I mean, Toledo and Ohio State, both of those internships were very different, but they each taught me so much because Ohio State, you're kind of like a cog in a giant machine, right? There's 35 other interns exactly like you. Whereas Toledo, I mean, I was one of 3 over the summer and the only full time. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I mean, I was getting to sit in with sponsorship meetings. Mm-hmm. I got to know like heads of departments that I didn't even see these people at Ohio State because we're one floor of the basketball arena at Toledo, whereas there's a sixth floor building at Ohio State that houses half of their athletic department. Right. So it's just different. And so learned a lot down there. Then COVID hit. So I had some other internships lined up that didn't come to fruition. So you do what you can. So I stayed a little bit with Toledo working virtually. I also was a sponsorship scout, they called it. And so basically never met these people in person. It was just something within sports. At the time, they were just tracking what sponsors sponsor different leagues and teams. And you'd kind of watch broadcasts, listens to radio, and write up a report, send it to my boss, again, that I never really met in person. It was cool, though. They had a good thing. It was Sponsor United. So did that for just a summer during COVID. And then coming out of that, was about to graduate. And I knew I wouldn't start at Toledo until the fall. And I also knew that they had to get like the final go-ahead to bring that back that position. And so I don't like to just kind of sit and wait. I was a little nervous. Everything they told me was that I'd be back at Toledo, but on the off chance it fell through, I wanted to at least be doing something to further my experience. Yeah, so I ended up working at Riddell that summer in inside sales and learned a lot. I mean, it was really cool to kind of see that side of sports as well, the equipment side.
Yeah, it sounds like you were really pulling a lot from each of those internships to kind of
They were all just a little bit different. Yeah, and that kind of really helped me zero in. And I always thought I wanted to do marketing, but kind of working in all those different sides really showed me that it was what I wanted to do, but you could tie so many things into that.
Right. Well, and I think that's interesting too, how you were saying being a part of the cog in the machine versus, having more of that personal touch with your internship. I feel like it's good to have experience on both sides because you could end up doing either. But tell me, do you feel that you kind of enjoyed that influence, I guess, a little bit more with Toledo? Is that one of the reasons that you were really drawn to this?
Absolutely. I just think when you're starting out, it's so important to see all the other sides of the business. Mm-hmm. That's been one thing that if I could pass along to people, it's even though if you know what you want to do, see what everyone else does too. Because even if you don't want to do that, at least when you're interacting with that department down the line, you know what they're looking for. Right. You know what challenges they face. And so I think that was really cool with Toledo. And at the same time, like I mentioned, it was my first internship in sports. So, I mean, I was just happy to be there, but it also let me see all these other departments and what they were doing. So it kind of did help me narrow down what I wanted to do. But, I mean, I'm a proud Buckeye, too. I loved my time down there. I can't thank them enough for that opportunity. It was just different. And I'm glad I'm started at Toledo and kind of got to see the big picture. And then I got to see how that one position I was at Toledo could be expanded to 20 additional sports, right? Toledo has 16, Ohio State 36. So there was just a big scaling that was going on. And so it's interesting to see both sides.
For sure. And like you said, networking too is such a huge deal. So the fact that you were doing so many different things and kind of collecting different people along the way to help you out, that's really important for sure.
Definitely.
And I think we also want to know a little bit more about your job now because we obviously know that you work in fan engagement and marketing and things like that, but talk a little bit more, give us the inside scoop about what exactly you do at UT.
Sure. So, I mean, my official title is Marketing, Sales, and Fan Experience Coordinator, but I mean, that varies from during basketball season, right? That's how I got to know you is sitting courtside at the games and working with your mom when she came for a opportunity with Rockets for the Cure.
Oh yeah, big UT fans over here, let me tell you.
Her mom sits behind me at every game and it's awesome. I love to hear her, like she will talk smack to opposing coaches. She'll get in the ref's ear. It is fantastic.
She will hoot and holler. Yeah. Talk about the fan experience. My dad at one of the games printed out big heads of the other coach and everybody and him crying like a baby crying, and then they would hold up the big heads every time the coach would yell at the ref or anything. It was kind of embarrassing but also incredible. incredible.
Yeah,
So.
Riley's parents are one of the reasons why nobody wants to play in Savage Arena, because it's a hostile fan
love
environment.
that.
And opposing teams do not want to come there.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, but some of what I do is like, working with the game itself. And that's something that really drew me in, right? Because I can remember when I was a young fan coming to Toledo games with my grandparents that, I'm seeing exactly how to make that impact in a young fan's life. And then part of it is working with our fantastic student athletes, helping them grow their brands, helping with some photo and video shoots and honestly pinch hitting wherever is needed. So, one thing I mentioned is trying to learn what all the other departments do. But the cool part of Toledo is sometimes you're going to be asked to step in. So, for example, we had a blizzard when I was a graduate assistant. We said fans, like, don't bother coming, but we got to get this game in, and we're going to try and get it on television. Well, a lot of our, students who ran the TV cameras couldn't be there. So I was running a game camera for a game.
Nice.
I thought that was pretty cool.
That's cool.
I've been the mascot for a game. One time when we had someone call off, I was the MC.
No way.
When we had 2 games at once, I got to be the public address announcer for a softball, a couple innings. I've been DJ for some games. I've ran the video board, which is definitely I'm probably not qualified for. But, it's been cool to kind of see how all these things fit together. And
Jack of all trades.
Yeah, right.
It's allowed me to be a little bit versatile. Hopefully it means they keep me around longer. And then also, I kind of see what they go through and how all these things fit together to help our fans.
Yeah,
For
definitely.
sure.
And I think it's interesting for you too. Not only do you have that connection of you went to UT games when you were younger with your grandparents and now you're working in that environment, which is so sweet. And it's cool for me and a little out of body to have gone to those games when I was a kid and now I'm older than most of the players, which freaks me out a little. But what's interesting too is you're not that far removed in age from people who are pursuing their undergrad or even their masters, like you just came out of it. So I think what's interesting about that is there are sometimes some age discrimination when you are so young working in an administrative role like that. Do you ever find that you have had some weird circumstances interacting with different students or with your coworkers in terms of your age?
I wouldn't say I've had any issues with it. I think sometimes it's a surprise when my interns learn that I'm still closer to their age than I am to my bosses.
Right.
That happens, every once in a while, especially when I made that that transition from a graduate assistant role where they knew I'm still taking, my master's classes to now I'm just a coordinator. So it's not clear that I just graduated. But I think it's more of a benefit. And I think the leadership at Toledo sees it that way. We've got a great team of leaders at Toledo, and it's one of the reasons why I love working there is just the people. But one example is I'm the advisor for our student organization that works with athletics. So,
nice.
Being closer to their age, having, worked with them for a couple of years now, build a rapport. And I think I get to see kind of the things they're looking for as students more, but then also being to take some of those higher level ideas from the leadership team and present them to them.
Yeah,
Right.
being able to relate and on that different levels probably super
They do tell me
helpful.
I'm not that relatable and old now, but
I feel
Okay,
like
maybe not.
it's almost like when you're in high school, the sophomores are always harder on the freshmen than the seniors are on the freshmen. I almost feel like when you're just close enough in age, they're going to clown you enough for not quite getting their references, but almost getting them,
Right.
I'm really hoping that's what it is, and I'm not that out of touch.
Oh, no. I think you're fine. I think it's okay. See, you're on a Gen Z podcast right now. You're good. You're
This is
fine.
my street cred. I'm going to show this to them. Be like, see, guys, I'm not that
I'm
uncool.
still relevant, I swear. No,
That's
but
funny.
too, for you, I'm interested in knowing about your personal fan experience with UT. So, obviously, like you said, I've seen you at so many games, both when you were still in school and now that you're not. And I'm wondering, what is your personal favorites in terms of what do you wear to games? What's your etiquette? What teams do you root for the most? I mean, I know you love all the UT sports, but do you have a couple that are your favorites?
So we'll go with game day first. Love a good quarter zip. You can see I'm in one now. I've been acquiring them like Infinity Stones, right?
Oh,
every
yeah.
color, every
Nice.
sport. So they're just so easy to just toss that over. I've got some gold checkered Vans that were a gift from me from the sponsorship team.
Oh, wow.
So we all matched on game day actually for about a year before they stopped wearing them, and I still have them. But so try and rep the Toledo, my game day apparel.
For sure.
In terms of watching the games, it's kind of crazy. So I came to Toledo for this role, right, while I was pursuing. So I've actually never been to like a home game and not
Been doing something, right?
except like, an odds and ends, like some of our Olympic sports, like I'll obviously come to cheer when I can, but I'll say going to BG because they're right down the road and watching our
Right.
teams. I don't have to do anything. I can kind of sit back, maybe
Nice.
critique a little what their fan experience is doing, but also watch our teams is a lot of fun. being that this year I've stepped into a role where men's and women's basketball are two of our larger sports that I'm like directly responsible for the fan experience, put a lot of time into what I do there. And I'm also sitting, center court with our public address announcer right next to me, your parents right behind me, the whole crew's there.
Whole crew.
I do really enjoy that. And I enjoy the sport of basketball just from a fan. Like I'm a big Cleveland Cavaliers fan. So that's really cool. And quite frankly, I love football too. But I work the sidelines at our football games and my eyes are up in the stands more often than they are on the field.
Right.
And so I don't even really, I read the recaps after the game and I'm like, oh, I didn't know we did that. Like, that's awesome. So yeah, I really enjoy watching the games from that perspective. And quite frankly, the seats are better than I'm ever going to get as a fan unless I make a lot more money.
Okay, so true. So true.
A little perk.
No, right? I was going to say perk of the job, honestly, getting to watch sports for free. But tell me, too, from your perspective, what do you feel like UT is doing differently from other universities that makes your fan experience a little more competitive, a little more engaging?
So we have a new athletic director in the past 2 years. He's brought in some new leadership too, and they've done a really great job of challenging us to not just look to our conference, the other Mid-American schools, Mid-American Conference, but look at ascending group of five is what they call it, teams that aren't Power Five but going there soon, and also the Power Five. And don't just be the best in the MAC. Don't just be the best in the Power Five, not even the best of Ohio. Like, let's be the best nationally.
Right.
And so it's allowed us to try some like wacky things. They challenge us to be the first in some things too. So let's be the only ones who's ever tried this. So one thing we did this past year from a fan experience perspective, we brought a dunk tank down on the football field. We called it the touchdown tank. And anytime we scored a touchdown, we dunked a student. We actually started with our president, Dr. Postal.
Oh, wow.
Our athletic director, Brian, was in there. We had our MAC championship coaches in there, student leaders. I'm so bummed we didn't get that touchdown at the end of our homecoming game. The homecoming queen in her dress was getting ready to get dunked, and we just ended up not. But it's kind of cool to do something like that.
Yeah,
they're
that's
really
fun.
open to these new ideas, and so for me, it's like if they're going to help me, come up with these new ideas, the sky's the limit. So that's
Right.
really fun about my job.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, but real question, were you in the dunk tank?
So I wasn't, but helping facilitated enough times, I got at least wet enough that I would have been dunked twice.
Right.
I was
Okay,
getting
okay.
soaked secondhand.
So you're off the hook, yeah.
Yeah.
All the water, none of the glory.
So tell us too, I'm curious if you have had any crazy fan experiences, either positive or negative.
I've got a good one, but I think in general it makes me look at what they do more and like maybe a little bit more critical. And sometimes it is like you just want to turn it off. Mm-hmm. But I do think I still enjoy games. I'm not saying I can't enjoy sports anymore. But one fun fan experience thing that happened, and this is like particular to me. Most people would be like, "Ew, that's gross," but I really enjoy like the wild foods that some sports venues have, and I think it's so
Sure.
cool and like to try
yeah.
different things. I wouldn't consider myself a foodie, but I really enjoy like the wild things people come up with, and
Right.
sometimes I'll come up with them myself. So I was recently visiting some of my college roommates. They live in Cincinnati now, and they're like, "We're going to go to a Reds game. Oh, and by the way, you'd get a kick out of this. Skyline Chili and La Rosa's Pizza are both in the venue, and people make something called a Sky Rosa." And I was like, I need to know more about this,
Yeah,
right?
right.
This
What
looks
is that?
awesome.
Yeah.
So basically, you take a piece of Sky Rosa's pizza, which, I mean, I'm like an okay pizza fan. I hadn't had it before. It's like, honestly, I hope there's not a lot of Cincinnati listeners on your podcast. It's kind of mediocre pizza. It has a very sweet sauce, though. And then you take a Skyline Coney dog, which I'm a huge fan of, right? Mm-hmm. And you wrap the Coney dog in the piece of pizza and you eat it.
Oh, interesting.
So I convinced one of my other friends to do it with me.
Yeah,
and we
how
went in
was
there
it?
with like we weren't sure what to expect. It was actually delicious. So
Oh, wow.
again, admittedly, I love Coney dogs. I think Skyline Chili is great. The pizza part, I think the sweet sauce and like the extra cheese, of course, added like an interesting dynamic. I was giving it a 7.5 out of 10.
Nice.
Okay.
But I would say like a Coney dog on its own is probably like an 8.5 out of 10 in my
Fair.
book. But this pizza is like a 4. So it kind of,
Okay.
overall it brings the average up. But
That's a pretty good metric. You heard it here first. Like, go
You're gonna
get one of
have
those.
Pizza fans, like
Yeah, right.
haters,
Right.
for your opinion.
All the Rosa's Pizza, they're like, hey, where's this Harry
they can
guy?
come debate me. I'll name 5 better places in Toledo alone.
Okay, you're actually so true. We have a crazy
Yeah,
pizza scene
that is
here.
true.
Absolutely.
Okay, so yeah, stand on that.
Yeah, real. Never mind. We're not going to clown you for that. That's fine. Do you have any like do's or don'ts for fans? Like what should fans do at games? What should they not do? Give us like a little bulleted list.
Oh, that's a great question.
I love fan etiquette because I know that I hoot and holler with the best of them, and I definitely get caught up in it. I love basketball, but I definitely do not know a ton about other sports. But I go to basketball games and I'm screaming at the refs. I'm yelling at coaches, and I'm a pretty nice person in real life, so it's not like me. So I'm interested if other fans kind of,
I would say that's the number one do, right? Get into the game, like get loud, enjoy it. That's what we're always asking our fans to do with our fan prompts. So another reason your family are great Toledo fans.
Right.
Right, like we can see where you get it from.
Right, just be loud. I don't know.
I wonder why I scream.
Yeah.
Exactly. Being loud is important. Don'ts are tough because I feel like everyone enjoys the game a different way. And I would never want to take that away from someone because quite frankly, I mean, there's sometimes I go as a fan and I feel like, oh boy, I know I work in sports, but like, I don't want to get up and cheer right now. I'm exhausted. Like it's the end of a game. Like it's not even close. I know you're asking us to get on our feet, but boy, these are pretty comfy seats.
Right.
So I think everyone should watch the game in a way that they enjoy. I think that's one of the best part about sports is it brings so many different types of people together. So, don't be a jerk. Be nice to the people around you, right? Don't be the guy who's trying to get on the fan cam and dumps a beer on someone else.
Oh,
That's always a bad one, I will say, I think in general, like, clean up after yourself. I know that it's, leave the peanut shells on the floor. I'm not asking that, but, try and be courteous.
Sure.
Again, just because there's a lot of people who come in and that's their one job and it sucks to see people leave, trash from.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
in general, I don't think there's a bad way to, as long as you enjoy the game, cheer for the team, try and be positive. Although every once in a while, like the cutout baby crying faces, like sometimes it's funny if you go negative a little bit, as long as it's in good fun.
I'm sorry, you guys. If you see my parents at a UT game, pretend you don't see them at the UT game.
I
they're
disagree.
Crazy.
I think you got to learn a thing or two. I think you should take a notebook and take notes on what they're doing.
Oh man. I really hate to ask. No, I don't. I really need to know the inside scoop on the Blue Crew because for those of you who don't know, the Blue Crew are the most dedicated sports fans at UT. They're incredible. They're decked out head to toe. They have masks. They have the blue and gold. They're rocking. They're awesome. So tell me a little bit about how you get inducted in the Blue Crew. Like, is it a secret society? I need to know the tea.
It is. And I had these same questions when I got to Toledo, right? It was kind of a new concept to me. And I was like, who are these people? And so I asked around our department and I got okay, so there's 10 of them each year. It's a secret group of people on campus. They wear masks and wigs and basically jumpsuits to every Toledo game. They get their name from fellow Blue Crew members and fans. And you're kind of an anonymous fan for your time at Toledo. And some of them,
because they do have names. They do have like made up names that they each
you'll
get.
Have it's printed on the back of their jumper. It'll say like Big Bird or Everest or like Peanut or we got some of these names. But yeah, so you basically are just known as this like rabid super fan, and they come to everything. I mean, every home basketball game that's not like winter break. They come to every football game. They travel to a lot of them, too. They've got a great alumni fan base that's, like, still engaged with them, and so it's part of the reason they're able to do all that. And then they're at so many other sports, too. So I made it a point to, like, talk to them and, like, get to know them a little bit better.
Sure.
And I'm like, you guys are awesome. Like, how do we get more students to maybe not, like, go with the anonymity and but, like, let's get more fans as pumped up as you are. So I got, talking to them a lot, and I worked with them to help coordinate spaces for them to change at some events so they didn't have to come in, outfit like that. And we would also make sure that they were in some videos we did. And so because I got to work with them a lot, I actually had the great honor of being inducted as an honorary Blue Crew member.
Oh, I'm so jealous. That's so cool.
It was definitely a highlight in the past year for me. So I had no idea what to expect. They kind of just shot me an email one day from like the official Blue Crew account. I was like, oh, this is legit. I feel so special.
Oh man,
yeah, that's awesome.
So sick.
And it was kind of, I got to see some of their ceremony, and they told me some of the things that like the average fan doesn't know, but like also can't know. So I'm sorry I can't, can't tell you here.
Can't get the inside scoop today, guys.
But yeah, they're pretty awesome, and they're really great people too. And the cool part is like once they get unmasked, a lot of like it's a really wide variety of people. Like, it's not just like people, it's like, oh, he's like, he was the mascot in high school, so of course he'd be Blue Crew here. Like, it's a wide variety of majors and everything like that. So it's a really cool group.
Fun.
I'd encourage you to talk to them at games. Sometimes they give out fun little Blue Crew wristbands, especially for kids.
Cute.
They're great for Toledo pictures. And then when they do graduate, getting to know them a little bit better, and you'll realize, oh, yeah, that's who I was talking to all these years.
Yeah, for sure.
That's so fun.
No, I think that's so cool. That's probably my favorite part of going to the UT games is seeing them all decked out and so excited. And it's true, like you said, they're at every single one. Even if they can't all be there, they have at least one there repping the group.
It's true.
I love that.
It's amazing.
Do you know when it started?
Oh, I should as an honorary member. But I'm going to have to punt on this question because I don't want to give out false information.
No, that's
Okay,
totally
so if
fair.
the Blue Crew is listening, take away his honorary membership. Give it to me.
Wow.
Sorry, had to try, shoot my shot. The last thing we really do want to ask you before we get to everyone's favorite part of the podcast is if you have any advice for young professionals, either within the sports industry or outside of it, who are entering in their career field and, might be a little nervous.
Inside sports, I feel like I might be slightly more qualified for, just because it's so different than a lot of other industries. And I talk to my friends from college all the time, and we have very different experiences within the workplace. I would just say get as much experience as you can early on, and don't say no to any opportunity, because you never know if it's going to be the one that it's like, oh, I didn't think I wanted to do this, but it's great. And at the same time, like within sports, you're very lucky if you find a paid internship like before you graduate undergrad. So like, what does it hurt? Like, yes, it's unpaid, but as long as you're not moving and have like, a huge cost associated with it, pick up that extra thing while you're doing your clubs in undergrad and working your other job, because we're usually pretty understanding and you could figure out if it's what you want to do. And once you decide it is what you want to do, that's when I'd say the hardest part is finding that first opportunity out of college, which is why I was so excited to come back to Toledo for that graduate assistant position.
Sure.
But it's just, like you said, kind of who you know, and making sure that you have good stops along the way, because you'll never know when they're going to be looking for someone like you. And quite frankly, like I've worked for 2 other great coordinators before me. And so I still keep in touch with them, and occasionally like one just reached out in the past 6 months and said, hey, do you have any good like full-time interns? Because I'm looking for someone. I have a graduate assistant position. Would they want to move to this, the school he's at now? And so, if you do a good job, people will keep you in mind and pass your name along. And then just for getting in, involved in general in the workplace, I would just say try and be versatile, because one thing I've learned is the more that you try and learn at the place you're at, if you're entry level or not, people begin to depend on you, and A, that's good job security, and B, it helps you just know so much and be helpful, and I think that's part of being a great teammate.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really good advice.
Yes.
And now that you've DJ'd a couple of the games, you have that experience, and people can hire Harry Bhanoo for their DJ efforts, man.
I'm not accepting. Please don't book me.
Do not reach out to him as a DJ. Okay, well, I know we've all been waiting.
It's that time.
It's that time. So it is time to talk about our Roman empires. So, Harry, you want us to put you on the spot? You want to go first?
You want me to kick it off?
Yeah, kick it off, man. Let's hear it.
All right, so obviously this trend kind of made no sense to me at first, but I understand the concept of it. And so something that I think about routinely and have for years is a good sandwich. I mean,
A good
for
sandwich.
me, at any point in the day, if I'm not thinking about work, sometimes it's a show or obviously a sporting event going on, but it's about sandwiches. Specifically in the past 2 years, I will tell you, I'll paint a picture of one sandwich that I can't get it out of my mind. It's so fantastic.
I love it.
So I lived in Cleveland growing up. Never really went downtown a ton outside of sporting events, but there's a deli in Cleveland, and it's about, 10 minutes from like the main arena district downtown. And so when Toledo went to the MAC championships, the tournament down there 2 years ago, I tried this for the first time because I love a Reuben. I love a good Reuben. I think it's
Reuben, I love that.
It's such a fun little sandwich because it's not like all the things that you'd think would traditionally taste good. Sauerkraut,
Right.
dressing,
Corn,
like salad, Thousand Island dressing, corned
yeah,
beef, rye bread. Like on the own, I'm not sure I'm eating any of those, but together, boy, is it fun. So I'd heard only good things about this Reuben. Like, okay, I'll have to try it, right? Oh my goodness. So you go there. First off, it's like 4 to 6 inches of meat piled high.
Wow.
We couldn't even get in. Okay, I'll backtrack. We couldn't even get in the door. There's a line out the door at a random Thursday.
Oh, that's how you
When
know
it's
it's
cold.
good. That's how you know.
Yeah.
And it's like a mix of regulars, a mix of people from different MAC schools. Like I saw someone from Akron, Miami. So it is pretty well known, and people will go there because it's not like right next to the arena. But you go in there, you go up. the greasiest floor you've ever seen in your life. Like, you are sliding. It is an ice arena. You go in there, really nice people. They're just nonstop. Like, there's 5 of them in the back just shaving meat, pastrami, corned beef. And like I said, 4 to 6 inches of it. They put the Thousand Island on the table. You didn't even have to ask. They just like, we put some on your sandwich, but here's a squirt bottle for when you add more.
Oh,
and I'm
yeah.
like, love you for that. Good ratio of everything. And you'd think that meat would be like too much, right? But it was so thinly sliced. It was kind of pillowy. So like, even though it's that tall, it's really not that
It can be
heavy.
like smushed
Yes.
into a good bite.
Right.
I understand.
So, was fantastic. Can't say enough good things.
I love that.
It was top of my list when we went back this past year to get one. I've had 2 of them in my life and can't wait for the next one.
I also cannot get over describing a Reuben as fun. Like, I love that from now on. Just a fun little Reuben. I love that. All right, Libby.
Okay, I'm going with Switzerland as the country.
Yeah, just as a whole.
Just Switzerland. No, I went there right after I graduated high school in 2019, and I loved it so much. I love that you can just be on the mountaintops. It's so gorgeous, scenic, snowy. And then we took like a 30-minute drive, and we were like on the beach, and it was warm, and there were flowers. Like,
oh, wow.
And it was just such a great time. Everyone was so nice. And I want to go back. I want to retire there. I want to live there forever.
Real. I don't think I knew you went to Switzerland. That's really cool.
I loved it.
I want to move there too. So
yeah,
maybe we take the
anytime.
podcast to Switzerland. Little on location shoot. Anyway, mine I chose specifically for you because it's a UT story.
Okay.
And it's a UT sports story. So when I was little, I had to have been like 10, I think. They do this thing at UT women's games where they auction off the pink jerseys for, I know I'm mansplaining this to you, I'm sorry, to the people. They auction off the jerseys in support of the Race for the Cure. It's an amazing fundraiser. Yeah. It's a great day. It's wonderful. So I get really excited on that day. My mom is really busy because she usually MCs that event every time. So, I'm just wild and running around talking to people, whatever. So I'm sitting on the sidelines, and my uncle was there with me. And he, I said to my parents, I really want to bid on a jersey. I want Riley McCormick's jersey. Shout out Riley McCormick. We had the same name. That's why I wanted it. There was no other reason, but I love her anyway. So I say to my dad and my mom, hey, can I, buy this jersey? They're like, we will give you up to $500. If it goes past $500, we will not pay for it. Like, you have to bow out of the bid.
Sure. But
that we'll let you bid on it up to that point. I'm like, great. So my dad's at baseball in Colorado, so he's not here. My mom is off, emceeing the event. I'm sitting next to my uncle, so I start bidding on this jersey. I am bidding back and forth with one other person, back and forth.
Oh, no.
I get to $500. She goes to $6. So I go to $7.
Oh, no.
So already off the bat, my uncle sitting next to me keeps encouraging me. He's like, no, do it. Keep going. Like, you can get the jersey, blah, blah, blah. Being such a menace. Like, I cannot. Thank you, Mark, for that. We keep going. And then it ends up getting to $1,000. And I'm still in the bid against this woman.
Oh, no.
I find out I'm literally bidding against Kelly Savage. By the way, for those who don't know, the UT Arena is literally called Savage Arena. So I was a little in over my head. Anyway, then she bids $1,000. I bid $1,100 because I'm still going. Then she does.
So you're 10 years old.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm like 10, maybe
Just
11.
making sure.
Like in my wee years. And she gets to $1,150. I go to $1,200, and it's sold to me for $1,200.
Oh, my God.
So then, I'm so excited. I run on the court. I'm hugging Riley. Like, I'm so thrilled, whatever. My mom's like, oh, cute. So the auction ends, and everyone's squaring up their bids, whatever. My mom walks up, and they're like, so how do you want to pay for this? Check or card or whatever? My mom's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? How do I want to pay for this? I didn't buy this. They go, no, Riley bid for, we assumed it was for you. She's like, oh my God, that was not for me. And so she's freaking out. And I got grounded for like 4 months after that,
Oh
had
my
to pay my
gosh.
mom back everything past the $500, which, is very difficult when you're like 10. So we started making these bets. If I could make a basket in a basketball game, she'd take $20 off, or like if we could whatever. And then I just kept giving her gift cards that I would get for my birthdays. It took me a while to pay off my debt, but I did it. And I do still have the jersey, and I do still wear it to UT games. So I have to say I'm sorry to my mother, but it was worth it for me eventually once I got through the punishment. So there you go. Crazy story.
I love it.
I can't with myself. But anyway. So that's my Roman Empire.
I love it.
And I want to thank Harry so much for joining us on this
thank you.
podcast.
Thanks for having me.
We so appreciate your insight and advice into the sports industry.
This has been a blast.
We want to say another big thank you to Harison Bhanoo, our guest on today's show. We're your hosts and producers, Libby and Riley, and our executive producer is Chris Piper.
If you have any questions, comments, or just want to listen again, go to wgte.org/comeup or wherever you stream your podcast.
Bye, besties.
Bye, besties.
WGTE. Voices around us.
WGTE is supported in part by the American Rescue Plan Act funds allocated by the City of Toledo and the Lucas County Commissioners and administered by the Arts Commission.